Hello again, it's me Audrina Lane here, and I have got Drive-By Part 2 for you, my exclusive short story that you can either only find at the moment in my secret Facebook group or on here, on YouTube, so you lucky subscribers have got a little extra special. And you never know, it may make it into an anthology at some point next year. So sit back, relax, grab your favourite beer and join me for Drive-By Part 2. I gulped as he tied the helmet to his bike and walked towards me. He was breathtaking, his piercing blue eyes against nicely tanned skin and bright white teeth as he grinned. His shock of black hair was ruffled from being trapped under his helmet, and a soft sheen of sweat was on his forehead. He was silent as he bent down and picked up my drop bottle, which he threw casually in the bin nearby. Then he was standing, full height, in front of me. I was trapped between his body and my car, looking up into his face and hoping I wasn't blushing too hard. "Hey girl, I just couldn't let you drive by," he uttered, before moving closer as his fingers tangled in my messy curls. He pulled me closer as he slid his hand through my hair, down to my neck, and then a casual finger traced the line of my jaw. I still hadn't said a word as on tiptoes I leaned in to let his lips meet mine. It was a sweet, soft brushing of closed mouths, the action taking both of us by surprise in its intensity. His eyes never left mine and I couldn't look away, instead blinking my shock at our brief encounter. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came to mine. What do you say to a stranger pinning you against your car and kissing you like your souls belong together? Instead, I licked my lips and waited for him to take the not-so-subtle hint, which he did. With both of his arms around me, he rained tiny kisses over my cheek, neck, jaw, before alighting back onto my waiting lips. I opened to him and let his tongue explore. I was shaking, but not from nerves, just the sheer joy of our kisses. Some were short and brief, then others long and probing as we both explored. It smelt divine, a mixture of leather, sunshine, and my favourite aftershave, cool water. My hands ran down his back over the tight leather jacket that I was sure covered a body that was taut and toned. His hand brushed down my side, catching my breast and making my nipples spring into life, like a shock of electricity to my skin. He must have felt it because he paused and looked into my eyes once more. "What's your name?" "Cara," I stuttered out. "I'm Ewan, and it's great to meet you." He blushed as our conversation slammed to a halt. Was this it? Was this all he wanted before he drove off and out of my life? Instead, he took my hand in his, and we walked together to where the lay-by ended and became grass. I just followed his lead. I wanted more kisses. I wanted whatever he had in mind, and I just hoped it was what was running through mine. We followed a barely visible path in the long dry grass and over a slight mound until the road and the lay-by were out of sight. The sun was setting behind us, the moon rising over a small stream ahead of us. We found a flattened patch of grass, and letting me go, he unzipped his jacket, shrugging it off to lie it on the floor. He turned away and unzipped his leathers, pulling them off to reveal a nice set of legs in shorts. Then he casually sat down and patted the space on his jacket for me, pushed off his boots, and I stepped out of my sandals, and then sat down next to him. Were we going to talk, or just kiss some more? His plain white t-shirt clung to him in all the right places, and I couldn't resist as I turned on my side and let my fingers touch the V of the neckline before running down the material. Then, catching me off balance, he pulled me down on top of him, his muscles hard against my softer curves. Our lips joined us again as his hands ran down my spine and then up, pulling my short hemline with them, before he started back down to grab my arse, naked in a tiny thong. His hands were hot against my cooling skin as he rubbed in a circular motion and pushed me in tighter against his firm body. Oh my God, this guy knew what he was doing, as our kisses grew deeper still and my heart started banging against my chest. I wanted more as I let my hands creep down his side to tug his t-shirt from the waistband of his shorts. I needed to feel his skin on mine. I pulled away from him slightly, enough to sit up. as I sat astride him and dispensed with my dress. He shadowed my move and sat up too. I was still in his lap as I helped him to pull the t-shirt over his head. I gasped in admiration at his fine lines and contours, just like the heroes in my books. He let out a short sigh as his hand reached around to undo the catch of my bra. The air felt cool on my skin, breath of fresh air against the clammy evening heat. He cut them both, letting each thumb rub over my erect nipples, playing with them in a rhythm that showed me what I needed to write when I got home. Moving his hands, he moved his head down so that he sucked each of them in, letting his tongue swirl around them before leaving with a nip to move to the other. I ran my hands through his hair, holding him close so that he repeated the move time and time again. I arched closer to him, wanting him so much, as our skin brushed against each other's, heightening the friction. He was so wet I wanted him so much as I wiggled my frustration into his lap. He felt my burning desire as he quickly shifted me so that I lay beneath him. His strong arms held me down as I lay partly on his leathers and partly in the grass. The sensations were incredible as the grass brushed my skin roughly on one side and the other felt the smoothness of the lining of his jacket. I saw his eyes running down over my taut belly and then stop at my pink panties. He stared before glancing back up at me. I just needed to nod my approval. I needed his touch, his finger, his tongue. I hoped on my folds. I was desperate for him to taste me, to want me as much as I wanted him. His fingers pulled my string down as I shimmied so that I was naked before him. He slipped his shorts down and I took my first look at his cock. It was as magnificent as I imagined it to be, and I wanted him even more, even though I still only knew his name. He knelt back, letting his hand run up my leg and then down the other, teasing me as he inched ever closer to the prize with each sweep. Then he was there. A finger slid into my folds and I shook. I was already so close to the edge that I knew it wouldn't take long for my first orgasm to break free. I'd been celibate except for my vibrator and my imagination for nearly 2 years. Once again he looked up and smiled, enjoying the power he had over me, but equally wanting this to be something we both shared. We were connected, intense slaves to our bodies' wants and desires, and we just couldn't stop now. Then his tongue was there, licking and lapping as ripples became waves that engulfed me. "Ewan," I cried as I shuddered onto his tongue. "Ewan, Ewan, oh my fucking God." My cries echoed on the breeze as he pulled back and saw the blush on my skin. I wanted to repay the favour, but he held me down as I whimpered, biting on my lip to stifle my moans. He reached across to an inside pocket on his jacket and pulled out a condom, which he swiftly put on. And he let me go and lay back down on the grass, motioning me to jump on top. I scrambled off the ground and took my own moment to savour his masculinity. He was submitting to my desires, and I adored the power exchange he gave so freely. I took a moment and leant over to suck on his sheathed cock, wanting to turn him on in the way he'd done for me. He let me do this for barely a minute, and I knew he was holding back. "I'm yours, Cara," he whispered. It was the first time my name had rolled off his tongue, and it sounded like music. I straddled him, lowering down onto him with slow care. I wanted to savour this for longer as he pierced me to the core. "Fuck," we both said in unison, and then laughed as I settled onto him. It was a perfect fit as I slowly started to grind against him. He lay back, arching to meet my every move and holding me tight with his hands on my waist. "Faster," he moaned. "Ride me like you want to lose control." I nodded and increased my tempo before feeling bold and moving his hand so that I led him to my clit. His thumb pressed against the nub and then started to rub in time with my thrusts. I was not going to last as I flung my head back and let out a howl of satisfaction like a wolf to the moon. The sweat was dripping off us both as I rode until he went tense beneath me and then came. I joined him with my third, or was it my fourth orgasm? I completely lost count. My whole body was on fire, bathed in the silver shimmer of the moon that was now fully in the sky. I slumped down to lie close to him, gasping for breath, and lost in the moment of wild abandonment we'd just shared. Two strangers overtaken by need, fulfilling their pent-up desires on a roadside embankment. I rolled off him as he shrunk and dealt with a condom, and he lay back beside me as we both looked at the stars above. The moment had been perfect, and I didn't need to speak as his hand slipped into mine, giving it a squeeze that I returned. A tiny acknowledgement of the intimacy that we didn't want to break with words. Then he did break away and sat up to find our clothes, strewn in the grass on either side. I took a final long look at his body, so sculpted and raw against the surrounding countryside. Here was a man so comfortable in his own skin, as he saw me look, and he just smiled. I pulled on my knickers and sundress, the material chafing my still, tingling body, so I just picked up my bra and shrugged. He walked me back to our vehicles, my car and his bike, the road next to them quiet now. I longed to give him my card to let him know I wanted a repeat, but afraid that for him this was just a chance encounter. He pulled on his leathers and then paused for a moment, aware that I was watching him. He stepped back towards me, pinning me against the bonnet of my car. I wrapped my legs around his waist as he laid me back for a final long kiss. It was only the lights and the cheeky car horn that broke us apart. "Take care, Cara," he said, softly brushing a final kiss on my cheek. "Maybe I'll drive by you again sometime." "You too, Ewan," I mumbled. My heart was breaking now as he strode to his bike and pulled on his helmet. Before he pulled the visor down, I took one last look at his eyes. Like a warm, fresh ocean I wanted to dive into again. Then he fired up the engine and I watched and waved as he turned the bike around, and with a flourish he was gone. Just the red of his back light blinding me as a tiny tear slid down my cheek. I wiped it away, wanting this to remain what it was, a beautiful moment in both of our lives. Then back in my car I turned the key and slowly drove along the last few miles to pull into my drive. My neighbour had called in to see Mansell during the day, but his eager little face greeted me as I walked through the door. I let him out and waited until he returned to my call. "Let's go to bed," I said, as he followed me upstairs to take his place in his basket. I lay awake for a while, the memories swirling around my mind and my body still burning. The scent of him still bathed my skin, and I wondered who he was. Would I ever see him again? I jumped out of bed the next morning, determined to get an early start on my new novel, starring a hero called Ewan and his motorbike. I turned on the news as I sipped my coffee and did a double take as Ewan appeared, holding aloft the Superbike trophy. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little short story from me. As I said, it may well end up in a slightly exciting car, motorbike, motorsport in something kind of trilogy, which I'm kind of working on with a few author friends of mine, hopefully. But as I said, it gives you a little insight into my writing style, and if you like that, perhaps you'd like to try 24 Hours to Love, which I wrote with my co-author Rita Ames, and that book is set at the Le Mans 24-hour race. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for being a subscriber to my YouTube page. Please feel free to tell your friends to pop over and like the page and take a listen too. And hopefully I shall see you again soon. So take care. Bye for now.